What's going on, people? Shimanda YB back once again. So, Oscar De La Sniffer and Eddie Hearn have got into it. Oscar's been essentially roasting Eddie for losing the Canelo partnership they had. So, Oscar leads with this. Hashtag lonesome Eddie. Top Rank will not work with you. PBC thinks you are a joke, and we all know how I feel about you. He then posted his picture here, lonesome Eddie. Eddie Hearn down bad, crying. Down. Listen, he down super duper bad with it. And then Eddie Hearn and De La Sniffer got into it. He said, "Do you remember, Oscar, when you flew into New York City begging to sign Berlanga? Watch him live on DAZN Boxing tonight." Oh no, stop it. This is a pie, to be fair. Eddie Hearn got a fight that De La Hoya couldn't get. That's a bit of a oops, I ain't gonna lie to you. He says, "I do, but you promised him." That's wow, fair play to Oscar. That's a fair point though, isn't it? If you tell someone they're getting Canelo, that's what they... Who ain't gonna go with that? Oops. Berlanga got shafted. Eddie Hearn said... Notice, Eddie Hearn doesn't deny it. He says, "Who have you promised Ryan next?" To be fair though to De La Sniffer, he did get the Tank Davis fight done, even if he flip-flopped afterwards and said, "Oh, Ryan never should have accepted them conditions." Well, you're the manager. You know what I mean? You could have said to him, "Don't accept them." I didn't hear De La Sniffer say anything, truth be known. Anyway, hashtag lonesome Eddie. You couldn't deliver Berlanga to Canelo, and now you're trying to throw Munguia's name. Good luck. Eddie Hearn replies, "I think it's a great fight for the fans, but I'll speak to your bosses." Oh wow. At DAZN, and we will come back. That was good. Fair play to Eddie, man. That's a bar there. I ain't gonna lie. Listen, as far as this exchange goes, even though perceptually Eddie Hearn's down bad, yeah, this was a great pie. Yeah, I think it's a great fight for the fans, but I'll speak to your bosses at DAZN, and we will come back to you. Yeah, that's the boss move. End of the day, yeah, Eddie Hearn's won this exchange, and I'll tell you why for a number of reasons. De La Hoya replies though, "It has nothing to do with DAZN Boxing. You have no fighters to work with." See, this is bad now because De La Hoya doesn't refute that Eddie Hearn's his boss. "I'll speak to your bosses and we'll come back to you." You know, he's not refuting this. He's not. Oscar isn't saying, "I don't have a boss." He's acknowledging, "I do have a boss, but it's got nothing to do with them." You know what I mean? It's one of them ones. Anyway, Eddie Hearn won this exchange. Why? Because despite the perception, despite the news being against him, Oscar went out sad. Why? Oscar's searching for social... What's the word? Like, his Top Rank weren't involved in this. PBC weren't involved with this. In fact, Oscar has never got on with PBC. Oscar's always talking about Al Heyman this, Al Heyman that. So you know it's bad when one of your enemies is citing one of their enemies for support. Do you know? "Oh, Top Rank don't like you. PBC don't like you either." Wait a minute. You don't like PBC, Oscar. So why are you now bringing them into it? This for me is corny. This is that... what's the word? He's trying to get... He's kind of trying to bring his friends in on it. Or, again, PBC aren't even his friends. But he's trying to get... "Oh, yeah, let's all gang up," kind of thing. I saw Oscar and Leonard tweeting as well. "Yeah, Eddie Hearn don't know anything about US boxing." Well, he knows enough to have been with Canelo for the last 5 years, or X amount of years. He knows enough to put on some decent fights, with all due respect. I'm trying to think, what's the biggest... Yeah, okay, Tank and Ryan Garcia. That's the biggest fight of recent time. But outside of that, it's all been Canelo events. Canelo Triple G, 3. Canelo Bivol. Wasn't a big fight, but he lost. You know what I mean? He's been making big moments in Alvarez's career. Now, Oscar at the time said, "Oh, well, if Canelo was with me, he never would have made that choice." Well, I don't want to see Canelo fight bums either. So, at the end of the day, I mean, what... Up until this point, okay, Errol Spence and Crawford, what's PBC been doing? What have they been doing? No one knows. When was the last big PBC event? Actually, tell a lie. Yeah, Tank and Garcia. But still, that's a bit of Garcia, that's a bit of Tank. And these guys, don't forget, with all due respect, yeah, Eddie Hearn doesn't preach about, "Oh, PBC and Bob Arum don't know about US boxing. So if you claim you know a lot about US boxing, where is Top Rank's big blockbuster shows? Where is PBC's big blockbusters? And even De La Hoya's. De La Hoya, you've got Ryan, that's it. So wait a minute, Eddie Hearn's only been in the US for a couple of years. You've self-proclaimed been in the US for 20 years and will be there for another 40 years, he said, quote. So in your 20 years of experience, what have you really, what's Oscar done? Okay, yeah, to be fair, he had the Floyd fights, didn't he? But even then, Floyd was fighting bums. And then Floyd spun off and went with PBC. Or what did he do? Yeah, I think he spun off and went with Showtime. So even then, De La Hoya played himself to some extent. And now, once again, Oscar's played himself out of the Ryan Garcia position. So, Eddie Hearn's never played. Yeah, people can laugh. Yeah, he lost Canelo, but he never really lost Canelo. Canelo was never tied up to a deal. Also, people have a short memory. Canelo went to fight Plant, and then took Plant's belt, and then came back to Eddie. So, there's a precedent for this. Eddie Hearn is actually doing it how it should be done. I don't believe in these 5-fight contracts and you can't fight anyone on other platforms. I like how Eddie does it. He says, listen, if I can give you the best fights you want, great. If I can't, it makes sense for you to go elsewhere. That's what's best for the sport, and that's what's best for the individual. This whole, well, I'm on this side of the street. Oh, there's no one on this side of the street, so I'll fight bums. We've been seeing that with Top Rank and De La Hoya and PBC for years. So I find it corny from De La Hoya's position now. De La Hoya's been warring with Top Rank and PBC and Al Heyman for years, and yet now he's trying to say, oh, PBC think you're a joke. Wow. That's how you know someone's desperate. When someone starts citing what their enemies are saying. Wait a minute, I thought you didn't even like Al. Now you're backing him up. Yeah, he don't like you either. This is what little girls do at school. Oh, yeah, Katie doesn't like you. No one likes you. It's corny. And meanwhile, Eddie Hearn out here staying a boss, and just this here right here was the boss part. This is what finished it for me. And I'm not biased. If De La Hoya came with lyrics, I'd have said that. He didn't. His lyrics were a bit weak and Lonesome Eddie. I don't really think it didn't hit for me. This hit for me. I think it's a great fight for the fans, but I'll speak to your bosses at DAZN, and we will come back to you. And De La Hoya didn't say none. Look. It doesn't have nothing to do with DAZN, but they are my bosses. That's what it says here. What De La Hoya is saying here is, in this particular situation, it doesn't have much to do with DAZN. However, they are my bosses. Because think about it. The main point, or the main part of this message here is, I'm going to speak to your bosses and we will come back to you. He doesn't say, well, you won't speak to my bosses because I haven't got a boss. And number 2, you won't come back to me because you get my boss. He accepts that. Yeah, okay, Eddie, you probably can speak to my bosses, and you probably can come back to me. However, on this occasion, you have no fighters to work with. That's what he's saying. He's admitting, yeah, you could come back to me with orders, but thankfully for De La Hoya, in this situation, he don't have any fighters to work with. So it's bad. Oscar down bad right now, and Oscar's played himself out of position. Oscar should have just led with the Canelo news. He shouldn't have got into details. He should have just clowned Eddie Hearn. Eddie, you've been pied off. He should have kept it there, kept it simple. Instead, he started trying to get into the talking, and oops, it turns out, don't throw stones in a glass house. Especially when you're about to be left by Ryan Garcia. Do you know what I mean? Like, Ryan Garcia put a post out the other day, I'm moving to Texas. So come on, Oscar, you've lost Canelo, you lost Floyd, and now you lost Ryan. I've got to be real here, if anyone doesn't know the US boxing game, it's probably De La Hoya. He's too busy sniffing. That's what the evidence shows. Back to back, he's losing everyone. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Smash the like button, subscribe. And lack of the 100% know that.